First Paw Media. You are listening to Mushing on First Paw Media. Visit our website at mushing.com.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert, and I am joined by my co-host, Michelle, and we are continuing our Iditarod 2024 coverage here on the Burled Arch podcast. It is a busy day on Iditarod, so like we normally do, we're going to kick off with where people are at on the trail. In first place, we have Nick Petit. He is at mile 457. Then we have Travis Beals, Dallas Seavey, Ryan Reddington, and Jesse Holmes. And then at the back of the pack, we have Josh Robbins, Connor McMahon, Laurel Eklund, Laurel Kittleson, and Calvin Doherty. It is important to note that everybody all the way down to Anna Barrington has either taken and finished their 24 or is currently on their 24, with the exception of Nick Petit, who is in first place. So I know a lot of people are looking at this right now on the tracker and they think, oh my goodness, Nick is so far ahead of Dallas and Travis and he's going to pull away and win the race. And that is not necessarily the case. He still has to rest for 24 solid hours before he can move on and continue on. So it looks like he'll probably do that very soon. And other than that, the only other news to really report on where people are at on the trail, Anna Barrington is down to 10 dogs. So she has dropped, if she started with 16, she has dropped 6 dogs out of her team already, and she's not even to the halfway point. Before we jump into any other news, Michelle, do you have anything else to report?
I have a question. Dallas is resting in Cripple, as well as Ryan Reddington. I'm going to assume that Dallas is taking his 24. Out on the trail out of Cripple is Travis Beals and Nick Petit. Travis Beals has taken his 24. So when he catches Nick Petit, I'm guessing Nick is going to be taking his 24 soon, because he's going to have to. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where the race will change. If Nick takes his 24 at the next checkpoint, which is Ruby, right?
Yes.
He will then be passed at some point by Beals and potentially everyone else that's coming into Cripple and leaving out of Cripple, including Ryan and Dallas.
Yes, and then things will settle down and everybody will be running on the same clock and things will even out once that's done. People always say that you don't really know where anybody is at until everybody has finished their 24-hour rest. So yes, Dallas is doing his 24 in Cripple, and if you're looking at the tracker, the little 24 and the little 8 on their profiles will turn green when they have finished those. So right now in second place, which is Travis Beals, his is already green. And since Dallas is doing his right now, his is still blanked out. So that's why we have that there. So I know there's a lot of back and forth on this. And if you're not following the tracker, if you're just following online, it can get a little murky, but that's why we try to figure it out here tonight. So Michelle, I know that you've been watching the tracker and watching videos and all that today. Before we talk about Dallas and the halfway award and what that entails, is there any other news to report from either the front runners, the middle of the pack, or the back of the pack?
You know, I think it was a fairly quiet day. A lot of the back of the pack got stuck in a pretty heavy snowstorm that fell overnight in the McGrath area. And so they decided to hunker down, which was probably a good idea. I do see that some of them went ahead and decided to take their 24. We're talking about Calvin Doherty and Laura Kittleson did take their 24s, and they're into Katna. while the four that are in McGrath, or excuse me, the three that are still in McGrath, that would be Laurel Eklund, Connor McMahon, and Joshua Robbins. I would imagine that they're all getting ready to leave here soon. Considering that they're starting to get farther and farther back. There were no scratches today. An interesting little post I saw from Brenda Mackey. This is Will Rhodes' wife. She mentioned how hard it is to be sidelined and found herself really watching the monitors. And I kind of want to speak on that. Every single race that you or our daughter Nicole ever participated in, I would find myself glued to the tracker in one fashion or another. And that included when you did the serum run in 2020. I was glued to the tracker so that I could tell the next checkpoint or village in that instance that you guys were going to be arriving and about how far out you were based on your tracker. And that really helped those villages know how to get prepared for you guys when you guys were coming in. And so that was valuable information that I was able to pass along down the trail prior to your guys' arrival, which also did help when you guys had some mishaps. And so I fully understand how Brenda feels. She's not out there. She can't help him. It said that they have a rule that they don't talk to each other when they're on races, but she was dying to find out why he had been delayed yesterday evening. He had spent 30 minutes outside of a checkpoint and she wanted to know what was going on. Well, apparently he had some issues with his back after the Dalzell Gorge, threw his back out, and he was dealing with some cooker mishaps. Cooker's taking 2 hours for him to get the dog food ready versus 45 minutes. So something's going wrong with his cooker, but all in all is fine. He's just moving a little bit slower due to those two aspects. So she figured out who had their phone on, sent a text message, said, tell him to turn his phone on. She had to do her wifely duties and check on him. And, say what you will, that's a good partnership.
It is. And I am not one that really stays glued to the tracker. As we mentioned at the first of our coverage this year, this is our first year of getting the insider. Typically, I just follow the leaderboards on Iditarod.com and read the stories and report on that for the show. I remember when Nicole was out on Junior Iditarod, I couldn't sit there and watch the tracker. I went out and did like a 40-mile run with the dogs. I think I did that on both days that she was gone and just pulled my way from it because it can get so monotonous following those little blips as they bounce down the screen. So that's not my idea of watching a sled dog race. Of course, you're watching it precariously, literally hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from the trail. So I get the sides of it on both sides, but yeah, I like following the races in much greater detail by following the stories. And I really like that idea that Will and Brenda have about really just tuning out and doing your thing without a lot of the worry, if you will, of making calls back and forth home and all of that. And I know she said in that post, he has better things to do than talk on the phone. So I thought that was a pretty cool stat as well. So yeah, there has been a lot of talk about can Mushers call people and Facebook and do all that other stuff. And I think that they are not allowed to live stream or anything like that, obviously, but they can send pictures and things like that back from the trail at checkpoints. There is a rule now that says two-way communication devices are allowed, but there cannot be any coaching going on. So what that means, if we're talking about that conversation between Brenda and Will, Brenda cannot say, hey, XYZ Musher is getting ready to pull out. You might want to get ready to pull out too. That would definitely be coaching. So I assumed that it just, the regular conversations back and forth are allowed. But again, I'm speculating there. So Michelle, let's jump into uh, one of the big stories of the day, and that is the halfway award that was awarded to Dallas. Let's see, about 10 o'clock last night, local time. And this is an interesting award because they've had this award for many years. It's called the Dorothy Page Halfway to the Finish Award, if you will. And for many years, they were giving out gold nuggets, and they would give out, I believe this year it was $3,000 worth of gold. So, little pieces of gold that they present right there at the checkpoint. I think there's a video or a photo on Iditarod.com of that happening right now. And interestingly enough, they had a choice this year, and maybe last year, I'm not sure, of either getting $3,000 in gold nuggets or a cell phone of your choice and a year's service by GCI. And GCI is one of the sponsors of the award, and it is one of the cell phone providers up here in Alaska. And of note, I'm sure a lot of people outside of Alaska do not know this, but many of the normal cell phone companies, such as AT&T or Verizon, their cell phones do not work well in the villages. Only GCI. GCI uses the same type of network that T-Mobile and back in the day Sprint used. It's an entirely different service than AT&T or Verizon. So GCI has those particular towers that works in most villages of Alaska. GCI is an Alaskan owned company, and of course they are one of the sponsors, so they offer that as a either or, either the $3,000 gold nuggets or the cell phone of your choice and a year of service. Now, I'm going to ask Michelle first, and then I will give my answer, and I would love to hear the answers from some of our listeners. I know you posted this question on our Facebook page, Mushing Magazine, late last night, but what would you pick, Michelle, the $3,000 in gold nuggets or the cell phone of your choice and the year of service?
Well, Robert, we use AT&T, and we use AT&T because we travel outside of Alaska quite a bit. And you switched to GCI about 15 years ago when we first moved here for the very reason you just said. I need something that'll work in the villages. And you took your phone out onto the trails behind our house, and you were only, I don't know, 5, maybe 7 miles from home, and you had a problem. And you could not call me to tell me to jump on the snow machine and get my butt out there to help you out and bring one of the dogs home that had hurt a shoulder. You couldn't call me to tell me that. So you dropped that service like a hot potato when you figured out that you couldn't use it right in your own backyard. However, we do have a GCI phone that we turn on when you are on the trails and go into the villages. So we have both. Do we need another phone? God knows we don't. So I would choose the gold nuggets. However, I would choose the gold nuggets for the historical nostalgia of it more than the desire to, ooh, I want some gold nuggets.
It's a very interesting question because the $3,000 in gold nuggets could potentially go up in value. I think I don't know exactly, but gold is well over $1,000 an ounce now, so it would be well more than a couple of ounces of gold. So I would assume if you did hold on to that, it could go up in value. So that is one thing. Secondly, though, what are you going to do with that gold if you need to feed your dog team now? Are you going to go cash that in at today's prices? If so, then the gold is gone, and the winnings are spent, which is definitely understandable. The cell phone idea is also interesting because a new cell phone outright, if you're thinking about an iPhone, is well over $1,000 to $1,500 for kind of the top of the line iPad or iPhone Pro Max 15 or whatever, I think those are about $1,500. And then if it's about $50 or a month or so of service, that would be what, $600 for service. So that's at about $2,100 for a year of service and the top of the line iPhone. So does it weigh out figuratively and literally? I think the better choice is the gold nuggets. But if you are in need of a new phone, I think that a brand new iPhone would be beneficial. So I would probably choose the gold nuggets as well and probably hang on to them for as long as possible for that nostalgia and also a little bit of a savings account of having some gold in the safe. So yes, I would choose gold. So guys, what do you think? What would you choose? Gold or iPhone? Let us know on our social media. So next up, there
So
is, yes.
Robert, I was waving at you. So, on the post that I posted last night for that very question, I gotta tell you, we had 20 likes or laughs. We had 31 comments, and it was unanimous. Everyone would choose gold.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's probably the better choice. So that seems to be the prevailing deal here as well. So one other thing, back to where folks are at, as we mentioned, the top five: Nick, Travis, Dallas, Ryan, and Jesse, and then back there in the rear of Josh, Connor, Laura, excuse me, and Calvin. Back and forth. Currently, Josh is at mile 311, and the front runner, Nick, is at mile 460. So 139 miles ahead of him down the trail. So there's always talk at about this time about the competitive rule. And this has been one of those more controversial rules since its inception. A dog team has to be competitive on the trail at all times, meaning he or she is making a gallant effort to move on down the trail, and this is for many reasons. It is for logistics, it is for time, it is for money, it is everything you can think of. That is the reason that they do this. And for as far back as I can remember, they have never instituted this rule for more than one musher. So what ends up happening if a person is falling too far back and say that they're in that red lantern position and they are a checkpoint or two behind the next group of teams, the race marshal at their discretion can have a conversation with this musher and says, hey, you either get going or we're going to have to institute that rule that we can withdraw you or DQ you, I guess is a proper term, for the race. And this is not a decision that is taken lightly. I know it's happened a few times over the years, and typically the musher does not want to withdraw from the race, so often they will scratch at that point instead of having that withdrawal or DQ. And it's a very sticky situation to be in. And thankfully, at this point, we do have that group of mushers at the back of the pack. And I think they're safe, at least for now. And it'll be interesting to see how things develop over the next couple of days, because 140 miles ish or so is a lot of trail, but it's not necessarily enough trail to cause concern right now. So hopefully Josh and Connor pick up the pace just a little bit and move their way down the trail and get on going. It does show that Lauro is already on the trail, and those other two guys are behind them. So with that, Michelle, any other news or stories that you want to mention before we talk about our musher profile of the evening?
Yeah, just one last thing is it really does appear that they are taking those 24s. Laura Kittleson is on the trail now, but it does show that she marked her 24 off. Calvin is on the trail, marked that he took his 24. They both left not too long ago, probably at the top of our podcast right now. So I'm guessing that Laura, Connor, and Josh are all probably gearing up to head out at the same time. It says that Lauro is running, so he might be leaving that McGrath checkpoint as of 5 minutes ago. However, interestingly enough, his 24 has not turned green. So it's gonna be interesting. I know that the three mushers that are in Takatna, uh or excuse me, Ophir right now are also have been there for quite a while. So that's Sean Williams, Anna Hennessy, um, Deke. They're all in Ophir right now, and so it's interesting. And Anna Barrington even they're all resting in Ophir. So it'll be Anna Hennessy, excuse me, is on her way to Ophir. She's already done her 24. So it'll be interesting to see if she stops and stays in Ophir for a while or heads on up to the next checkpoint, which is where Dallas and Ryan are at.
Yeah, so a lot of trying to figure out the charts and the timers and all that. And that's one of the interesting things about doing a nightly podcast, especially at a particular time of day. And it's right now 4:30 Alaska time, and I'm again hosting from the road because I have to teach my college class tonight. But yeah, remember when you're listening, you're literally getting a moment in time of when we're broadcasting this. And I think what we're going to do, Michelle, I think we're going to institute a little bit of a rule for the Burled Arch podcast.
Uh-oh.
And we've never done this before, but I think moving forward, I think that we are going to report where people are at on the trail as we do every beginning of every episode. So where the top five are and the bottom five. And then we're going to leave it at that. There's no reason to talk about where people are at or where they're going, because unless a person is listening right this very moment, that means absolutely nothing 10 minutes from now. So I think what we're going to do, which is a little bit different than a lot of the other podcasts and media outlets are doing, they're talking a heck of a lot about who is where now. And that just isn't good news. Do you agree with that?
A little bit. I mean, unless something really major has happened, like another moose incident, God forbid it doesn't, or the elusive ponies or something like that. I don't necessarily know that we do need to talk about it, other than the fact that sometimes people are interested in the goings on in those specific checkpoints that we are discussing this evening, like for the fact that Nick Pettit is on his way to Ruby.
Yep. So that's all we have to report on that for sure. But now for what everybody's been waiting for, our Musher profile of the evening. I got a message today on X or Twitter or whatever it's called these days about our uh, Musher profile of the evening last night. Calvin Doherty, one of his fans, reached out and said, "I am so happy that you covered Calvin. He seems like such a great young man, and I was fortunate enough to meet his dad at the Iditarod restart, and they are truly a up and coming mushing family," is what they said. So shout out to those folks that are following us over on X, and good job to Michelle for picking Calvin last night. This is always the highlight of my evening on the show, and I always enjoy figuring out who we're going to talk about next. So who is that, Michelle?
Well, it is going to be the none other Rookie of the Year at the 2023 Kobuk 440, Bailey Vitello. Bailey is quite an interesting young man himself. He is a second generation musher from Milan, New Hampshire. He moved to Alaska a few years ago. And so let me go over to his website that is well done, you guys. You guys should go check him out. He says that he is an official Iditarod finisher number 827. And if you guys recall, we have discussed the number of finishers for the duration of the Iditarod on a former podcast. So be sure to check out all the podcasts this year, you guys. But Bailey began dog sledding when he was very young. He is a second generation dog musher, as I mentioned, and he got his first dog, Bridgie, when he was barely able to see over the handlebars of his dog sled. When he was old enough, he entered the junior Iditarod, and at 14 years old, his father and himself took a year off of school to work, train, and compete in races throughout the lower 48, then made the journey to the junior Iditarod, and he was hooked, you guys. So in early 2022, he completed all of his Iditarod qualifiers, and he moved to Nenana, where he calls it the home of the Minto Flats, one of the best training areas in Alaska. And I would say that he is probably correct in that opinion. He was led around by quite a few of his veteran Iditarod mushers that are neighbors of his. And I think that we can wager a guess at to a handful of who those people are. Robert, don't you think?
Yes.
Anyhow, he is super excited about running this year's Iditarod. I did not get to interview with Bailey at the restart. You know, it was quite the scene down there, and grabbing as many mushers as I could quickly so that we could get out and on the trail in time to catch some of them coming into Yentna Station was pretty important. So I missed getting to interview Bailey. Robert, have you had him on the Mushing podcast?
I have. I remember interviewing him several years ago, way back before we moved it even over to the Mushing radio feed, when we were still piggybacking off of Dogworks Radio. And I am going to go find that episode tonight or tomorrow, and I'm going to upload that to today's show notes. I did that this morning with our show last night. I found that old episode of Larry Doherty, and it was so far back that we interviewed Larry, Michelle. It was when we were still on Blog Talk Radio. So the audio
that means we were still in Colorado.
So it was not good audio, but anyway, I pulled it up, I pulled it out of the archives, and I put that on there. But anyway, getting back to Bailey, I did interview him when he was still in New Hampshire. This was before the thoughts of coming up to do Iditarod or anything like that. I believe at that time he was still doing his sled dog tours and that sort of thing there in the Northeast. And I've reached out a couple of times to him in this off season, and he's wanted to come on the podcast, and we've always had our calendars crossed. So either he is doing something or I'm away or something. So we have not been able to connect. So I'm looking forward to having him on. But his dad and mom, I believe it is, they share a Facebook page together, and they are very active on social media, and often they will like and comment and share the stuff that we do on our social media. So I know that they follow us, and I know that they'll be listening tonight. So the deal is, guys,
Robert, I have a proposal. I propose that Team and Trail makes their way up to Nenana and does a tour of Bailey's kennel, because I have a hankering for a salmon bake anyway.
Well, you know, he's not the only one up there.
I know.
the Robinsons are up there, as well as a couple of other people right there in Nenana. And for folks that may know in a little bit about Nenana, that is the start of the 1925 Serum Run. Right there, right off of the Parks Highway there is the train station, and that is where they go. And you had mentioned those trails in the Minto Flats. And yes, those are some absolutely beautiful trails. I ran on those trails when we went out on the Serum Run trip in 2020 with the help of Aaron Burmeister. I remember meeting with him at a very cold morning in the middle of the street of Nenana, and he broke out an old file folder and drew a hand-drawn map of how to get from where we stood to Minto on literally the back of a
Practically a napkin.
practically a napkin. And he said, okay, I want you to do a sharp turn here at this power line and then go about a quarter of a mile till you see this sign on the left and then make a sharp right. And then you're going to go over some railroad tracks at about here. And that's how it was. Those were typical dog mushing / Alaskan directions. So yeah, beautiful trails up there. And
Just
I
stick
know
to just stick to the trail. You won't get lost.
Yep, and I know that he does a lot of work with the grooming there. So yes, the Robinsons, the Burmeisters, and the Vitellos are right there in Nenana. So maybe it's a chance for us to drive north and do some sit down interviews with those guys for sure. So yeah, those guys have been doing mushing for a long time, and I wish them well. And definitely check them out on social media. And I'm going to do my best to find that old episode of Bailey and put it right here in the show notes for sure. One other thing before we go, Michelle, if you have not had a chance, we had some time to sit down and talk with Josh Robbins and his wife at the Iditarod Restart, and they talked about their organization, Outreach 22. I think we even covered that in our first couple of days of coverage. Well, I went out and I joined their Facebook group this morning and checked that out. And he meaning Josh and his family had posted some pictures today of all of the trail food that he is taking out on the trail. And it's a really cool write-up about what he's eating and his favorites and how he cooks it and his snacks and all of that, because that is one of the questions that we always get is, what do mushers eat out on the trail? So do us a favor, head over to Facebook and join Outreach 22. It is a group. It is not a page. Just click on there, join, and I don't even know if there's any questions. So just click on there to join, and then definitely read all about not only this trail food, but what they're doing for that outreach. It's a really cool program for sure. But yeah, he's eating pretty good out on the trail. I won't divulge any secrets. Check that out for yourself. Michelle, anything else
Oh,
before we go?
so they just posted an auction item. Quite a few. Josh is a hunter, so these are hides that were used from his hunting where he trapped beaver, and they have made mittens and hats, and they are doing an auction for them. So you guys better get in on that. They look pretty nice.
I did see that, and what a cool way to raise some money, not only for their cause, for their organization, but I think that they're going to split some of that money for that auction to go towards both the expenses of racing as well as back into the organization. We're going to leave it right there. We want guys to go check that out for sure. So, Michelle, before we go, any parting stories or news?
I'm excited about the river run.
Excited about the river run. We will be talking about the Yukon River tomorrow. I will be back home in the Mushing Magazine World headquarters, so the audio will be a little bit better. I absolutely hate Zoom. I cannot stand it. We will be back together, and I will not be getting interrupted by Michelle by her constantly saying, "Hey, Robert, hey, Robert, hey, Robert." So, Michelle, I will see you later tonight. This is the last night of our in-class session for dog mushing at Alaska Pacific University. I am so happy we're able to do this. Again, we have taught 6 brand new mushers all about dog mushing, and a couple of them are ready to throw in the towel at school and become dog mushers. And I am telling them with all of my might, stay in school, get your degree, and worry about doing sled dog stuff later. So that is my take home from that. Other than that, we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Nobody covers dog sledding like Mushing from First Paw Media. Our team of athletes, volunteers, race organizers, and mushers like Robert and Michelle Forto brings you closer to the sport. If it's happening, we are there. Live from the qualifying races in January and February, the Iditarod in March, and in the summer, Mushing takes you on the road with our team and trail tour. We connect you with a history of the sport, in-depth interviews with the top mushers, and great storytelling and breaking news all year long. Follow on mushing.com.